All right, so first of all, friends, there we go. Stop whining. Well, you're going to study this time because you need it. I know. Okay. All right, are you ready? Here we go. So first of all, y'all, I want to fill in just the quadrantals, So this one is 1 and 0, right? And the one at the top is? And this one? Very good. And the bottom? Awesome. Look at us already. Okay. 0, -1. See, look at you already. All right, so that's 0 degrees and 0 radians. And then at the top is how many degrees? 90. And how many radians? Pi over 2. All right, and then we can fill these in, right? In the first quadrant. Let's start with that. So the first one here is 30 degrees. And what's the next one? 45 and 60. Easy peasy. And then remember, this was pi over 2. And so the next one down was 3. And then pi over 4 and pi over 6. So then we can do the little hand trick. And if I want to find the cosine of 30 degrees, the cosine is up. So that is the square root of 3 over 2. And the sine is down, and that's a half. And the cosine of 45, the square root of 2 over 2, and the square root of 2 over 2. I told you to be on time for my class. Promise? And you missed my whole entire speech. He was in ISC shaving. There was like this huge line, and I went to take a schedule into one of my homeroom kids, and I saw him, and I go, don't you be late to my class. But you were. Put your phone away. Don't even get on that phone. No time. Get out that yellow sheet and catch up with us, Jesus. All right, so we have a half and the square root of 3 over 2. Is everybody good so far? Yes. Okay, turn your paper over to the back. We are going to finish it, Jada. Okay, so what I want the cosine of 5 pi over 6. I want the cosine of 5 pi over 6. And I know we've been over this and some of you know it. I'm going to go really slow for those of you that don't remember and for those of you who never learned it, okay? So, first of all, cosine of 5 pi over 6, what is the reference angle here? Pi over 6 is my reference angle. So, the reference angle is pi over 6. So, if you look on your handy-dandy thing we just filled out, what are the two values for the pi over 6? So, the square root of 3 over 2, this one is the cosine, and this one is the sine. So now I know these are my values at my reference angle. So the next thing I need to know, 5 pi over 6. So pi over 6 is how many degrees? 180 divided by 6 is 30. 30 times 5 is 150. So 150 is over here. I'm going to say that again. because I'm seeing some smiles. So the pi is 180. 180 divided by 6 is 30. 30 times 5 gives me 150, which means it's past 90 degrees but less than 180. So it's in the second quadrant. In the second quadrant, the x is negative and the y is positive. So what am I looking for here, friends? I'm looking for the cosine. What is the cosine value? So it's just negative square root of 3 over 2. What is the sine of 5 pi over 6? 1/2, because the sine is positive. What is the tangent of 5 pi over 6? So the sine is, the tangent is sine over cosine, right? So the sine is 1/2, and the cosine is negative square root of 3 over 2. I'm going to flip it. 1/2 times 2 over negative square root of 3. So what cancels? The 2's cancel. So you have negative 1 over the square root of 3. Can I have a square root of 3 in the bottom? No. Well, some of you do, but if you're going to get it right, you don't. So it's negative square root of 3 over 3 is my answer. Now, if I want the cosecant of 5 pi over 6, and I think this is where a lot of you just tuned out. So it's the cosecant goes with the sine, right? So it's the inverse of the sine. So I'm just going to flip what I got for the sine. So the 1/2 becomes 2. So if I want the secant of 5 pi over 6, that one goes with which one? The cosine, right? 1 over x. So I have negative 2 over the square root of 3. I have to rationalize the denominator. And if I wanted the cotangent of 5 pi over 6, this time it's cosine over sine, so negative square root of 3 over 2 divided by 1/2. Okay, so hopefully this is helping you remember. If you didn't learn it in the first place, hopefully you're going, oh my gosh, I don't know why I didn't learn this. It's not that bad, right? Okay, so turn this back over. All right. So listen, I want to fill in the rest of this now. So I know this was positive, positive, right? And we already said this one is negative, positive. So this is negative, negative. And this one is positive, negative. Okay, so this one is 180 degrees over here, and the radians for 180 degrees is pi. So how do I get this angle? I'm going to subtract what? 30. So that's 150. So how do I get from 90 to this one? Add 30, which is 120. And how do I get to this one in the middle? I'm going to add 15 because I'm really adding 45, right? So I'm going to get 135 here. Yes? All right, so the next thing I need is I need the radians. And what did we say 150 was? That's what we did on the back. That was 5 pi over 6. So 120, that is, it's 2 60s, right? So 2 pi over 3. And to get over here, I have 45 plus 45 plus 45, right? So I have 3 pi over 4. I have 45, 45, and 45. So that's 3 of the pi over 4s. All right. I am the only one that's a bully in here. You guys be nice to each other. All right. So here's the next thing I want to say. So the reference angle for pi over 6 is pi over 6. Here's my values right here. So which one do I make negative? So I get negative square root of 3 over 2 and a half. So the reference angle here is pi over 4, and I make the x negative. So it's negative square root of 2 over 2 and a positive square root of 2 over 2. The pi over 3, you make the x negative, it's minus a half and square root of 3 over 2. So to get from 180 to the next one, what am I adding? 30. So that's 210. This one is 270. So to get to this one, I'm subtracting 30, so I get 240. Boys, I'm going to punch you. I know you didn't. To get from 210 to the next one, I'm going to add 15, so I get 225. So 210 would be how many 30 degrees? 7 if you're multiplying correctly. So pi over 6, so I'm going to get 7 pi over 6. 240 is how many 60s? 4. So it's 4 pi over 3. And then 225, how many 45s do you have? 7. Oh my gosh, it's 5. We said 5. You said 5, 6, 7. All right, so now let's fill in the values. So the reference angle here is pi over 6. So pi over 6 is square root of 3 over 2 and a half. And they're both negative. So it's negative square root of 3 over 2 and negative a half. Negative square root of 2 over 2, negative square root of 2 over 2. Negative a half, negative square root of 3 over 2. So if I go all the way around, this is 360, and that's 2 pi. Okay, boys, I'm not going to let you sit together if you don't stop. Are you the sound effects man? Okay, So to get from 360 back here, I'm going to subtract 30, which gives me 330. To get from here to here, I'm going to add 30, which gives me 300. I'm going to add 15, so that gives me so the reference angle here is, oh wait, let's do this. So 300 is how many 60s? So that's 5 pi over 3. $330 is how many 30s? 11. Oh. And I know this is scary, but has somebody counted up the 45s? Oh, thank you. Okay, so the reference angle is pi over 3 on this one, so it's a half and square root of 3 over 2, and the y is negative this time. Square root of 2 over 2, and the y is negative. Pi over 6 is the reference angle. It's the square root of 3 over 2 and a negative 1/2. That was not hard.